Okay, to understand Malcom Bendalls' thunderstorm generator, the first thing we need to understand is what a plasmoid is. Now, plasma is the fourth state of matter. So you've got liquid, solid, gas, and plasma, okay? Plasmoid is when that plasma arranges itself into a torus or donut sort of shape. I can go into more about that later, but essentially what is creating these plasmoids in this thunderstorm generator is water bubble cavitation, and that's something we've known about for a bloody long time. The marine industry has a big problem with their propellers being destroyed by water bubble cavitation, okay? Even just in Google right here, we can see that it's causing water bubbles to form, or vapor bubbles to form and then collapse on the propeller blades. Now, that actually holds a decent amount of energy, which is why it ends up destroying the propeller blades. So essentially, when that bubble is the right size, as it collapses, it creates a plasmoid. Okay, so as the north and south implode, the north and south, one spinning one way, one spinning the other, it creates a 0 point here in the plasmoid, which ends up creating a magnetic field, so it's a self-containing plasmoid, so to speak. Okay, so that's just a general overview without going into the science behind it. Like, if you want to watch Malcolm's lecture series, he does explain about the geometry and why this does what it does, but I'm just wanting to tell you what it does, not why it does what it does. Anyway, so the term plasmoid was coined by this Winston Bostick in 1950, and there have been several other people like Ken Shoulders, another paper here published in 2020, and wouldn't you know it, even NASA's looking into plasmoid research. Okay, at this point I want to explain that there is a difference between plasmoids creating water and plasmoids creating air. See, whereas plasmoids creating air, it can be dangerous. There's a phenomenon called ball lightning, if anyone's ever looked up that. That's actually plasmoids in the air. They can hurt people and everything, whereas these plasmoids, which are formed in water, are nowhere near as damaging. So, if I understand correctly, what the plasmoids actually do is break elements down into their parts, like what they're made of, you know what I mean? So water gets broken down into hydrogen and oxygen, and then that hydrogen and oxygen gets broken down into its protons and neutrons. And that's amazing in itself, the fact that, like, that's essentially splitting the atom, but in a safe, controlled way, you know? So it's essentially what they're doing to create these massive big explosions, but it's happening in a safe way. Okay, now that we've got a general overview of what a plasmoid is, let's look at the thunderstorm generator. Now, there are three main parts: the ionization chamber, the plasmoid generator, and then the thunderstorm generator. Okay, so the ionization chamber is literally just a chamber with a UV globe in it. I don't understand the science of why he needs this, but that ionizes the air in some way and makes the next part of the process work better. Okay, so the second part of the system is the plasmoid generator. So this is essentially just a tube full of water. You've got an air stone at the bottom, so any air that's coming through the ionization chamber goes through the air stone and gets broken up into as many little bubbles as possible. And then there's even stainless steel wool and stuff put in to the rest of the chamber to break those bubbles down into as small as possible, because big bubble won't form a plasmoid, so you need the right size bubble to form a plasmoid. So now that the plasmoids have been created in this plasmoid chamber, they get sucked through into the bottom of the thunderstorm generator. Now, the intake, which of course that's what this is, the air's being sucked in, that is literally just one tube that goes all the way up through the center of this generator. So if you look here on the right hand side, this intake goes in, and then there's a tube that goes all the way up to the top, right? From the top, it goes into the engine, okay? So that's what's creating our suction, is the actual piston. That's what's sucking the air through the system, okay? That air never actually touches the exhaust gases, okay? So after we've got it coming through this system, it goes into the fucking combustion chamber. The plasmoids are discharged slightly there, but then they're sent back through into the thunderstorm generator. Now, the exhaust goes in an outside tube, but spinning in an opposite direction. So we've got our intake that comes in the bottom, spinning through the center tube, in a clockwise direction. Then we've got our exhaust, right, coming and spinning around the outside of that intake in an anti-clockwise direction. Okay, so we've got an inner tube and an outer tube. The inner tube is the intake and the outer tube is the exhaust. Those two gases never actually touch, but, right, if we look at how a thunderstorm actually is in nature, we realize we've got hot and cold air swirling in different directions. So essentially that's what creates the charge in the thunderstorm generator, which is picked up by the plasmoids and literally charges the plasmoids. And that's what gives them the energy to transmute the carbon into oxygen. So that, like I said, that is just a general overview. I haven't gone into detail about anything. I understand it up here, but getting it into words and trying to explain it to people, completely different story. So if you have any questions, or if there's anything that you'd like to understand better, put some questions down below and I'll make a video or two explaining whatever the questions are. So yeah, anyway, this is the first time I'm making videos like this, explaining things and doing this, only because I've found this and it literally solves every problem that we have in the world. I mean, it's amazing. It really is amazing what this technology could mean for the planet. Like, please look into it. Love to all.